Till now we saw the plane sedimentation where these particles which were there in suspension were settling due to the action of gravity. Now this kind of sedimentation is only possible when the size of particle is greater than 50 micrometer, and if it is less than this value then plane sedimentation becomes ineffective because Brownian motion takes place for these smaller particles, and because of this Brownian motion they move in zigzag motion and they remain in suspension. So they do not settle very easily. We call these particles as colloidal particles. So if we want to remove these colloidal particles, we have to go through a process of coagulation, flocculation, and then sedimentation. So what we want to do in this process, we want these very small particles to come in contact with each other so that their size can increase. I mean, effectively a flock can be formed, and this flock can be removed due to the action of gravity in the sedimentation tank. This is what we want. So what is the problem in this process? The problem is the negative charge which exists on the surface of colloidal particles. Now when you put these negatively charged colloidal particles in water, these attract the positively charged hydrogen ion on the surface. Now because of this positively charged hydrogen ion, a very thin and strong layer forms here on the surface of this colloidal particle, which we call as bound or rigid layer. So this is not the only layer, this is the first layer. After that there is another layer. So then this other layer, both positively and negatively charged ions are there. So this another layer is called as diffuse layer. Now the potential drop from the surface of particle to this bound layer is called as Stern potential, and the potential drop between this bound layer and the diffuse layer is called as zeta potential. So the purpose of the coagulant what we use is to reduce this zeta potential. So first of all, let's understand what is happening here. Because of these two layers, the size of the particle or the effective size of the particle has been increased. Now if the size has been increased, they cannot come in contact with each other, and the force of attraction which exists between these particles is van der Waals force, and this van der Waals force is only effective if these particles are very close, and unless and until this diffuse layer is removed, these two particles cannot come in contact with each other. So for the removal of this diffuse layer, we use a chemical which we call as coagulant. So what is the purpose of this coagulant? These coagulants are mostly multivalent metallic cations like aluminium, ferrous or ferric ions. So these ions, what they do, they penetrate into this diffuse layer and they make a bond with this colloidal particle, and they neutralize the negative charge. So if this negative charge has been neutralized, if it has been neutralized, then they can come in contact with each other, they can come close, so this van der Waals force can become effective and a flock can be formed. So this neutralization of charge is one of the ways in which these coagulants work. Because for aluminium there is one thing called which is known as sweep coagulation. So in this process, if we use aluminium, it a precipitate of aluminium hydroxide is formed, and this precipitate is sticky, or as we call as gelatinous. So because of this precipitate, it attracts, or the other colloidal particles are stuck to the surface of this aluminium hydroxide, and it forms a flock which settles down. So this way these coagulants work to remove this negative charge which is there on the surface. So this neutralization of charge happens and these particles come closer, so the flock forms and then it can settle. Now we have to see the different coagulants which are used to remove this charge. First let's see alum, which is a widely used coagulant. So the formula for alum is given as Al2SO4 whole thrice dot 18H2O, and the chemical equation that takes place is given as, so this alum reacts with the bicarbonate alkalinity which is there in water, and it produces calcium sulfate aluminum hydroxide and carbon dioxide. So this aluminum hydroxide, it is in precipitate form and it is a gelatinous precipitate. So what does this precipitate do? It is in sticky nature, it is of sticky nature, so because of that other particles are stuck on the surface of this precipitate. So this precipitate increases in size and it can settle due to gravity. Just the problem is it produces sludge, so that sludge has to be removed separately. Apart from this aluminum hydroxide, it is producing, this reaction is producing calcium sulfate and carbon dioxide also. So this calcium sulfate causes permanent hardness in water, and this carbon dioxide can produce corrosive action. So these can be the small problems related to the addition of alum. Now here we can see that when alum is added, it is reacting with bicarbonate alkalinity. And if you remember from alkalinity video, this bicarbonate alkalinity only exists if pH is less than 8.3 and greater than 4.5. So this is 4.5 is not a suitable range of pH for drinking water. So the pH has to be between 6.5 to 8.3 if we want to use alum as coagulant. Otherwise it is ineffective. If proper this bicarbonate alkalinity is not present, then alum will not work properly. So sometimes in water this this pH is not suitable and this alkalinity is not in suitable amount, so we have to add additionally. So this lime, that is CaOH whole twice, or sodium carbonate are added to water to increase its alkalinity. So otherwise alum is very cheap, but if we have to add these compounds, this lime or sodium carbonate, then it can become expensive. So these are the problems related to the use of alum. So apart from this coagulation, it also removes color, taste and odor. These are the other benefits or the problems which can be solved by using alum. Let's see this question which came in GATE related to water treatment with alum. So a water treatment plant is there which treats 10 mld of water and it requires 20 mg per liter of filter alum, and water has 6 mg per liter of alkalinity as CaCO3. So this alkalinity is given in terms of CaCO3. So we have to find out the total alkalinity requirement, that too in terms of CaCO3 equivalent, which will match the quantity of this filter alum. So first of all you should remember this equation which we saw for alum, because it will not be given and you need it to solve the questions. So here it is asking that in the question it is giving we are using 20 mg per liter of filter alum. So what will be the corresponding quantity of alkalinity which should be present in water for this reaction to take place, that it is asking, and this it is asking in terms of CaCO3. So what we are going to do here, we will first find out the alkalinity in terms of this calcium bicarbonate and then we'll convert it into the calcium carbonate equivalent. So first let's see what are the molecular weights for this calcium bicarbonate and this alum. So that would be the sum of atomic weights. So for aluminum it is 27 into 2 plus 32 into 16 into 4 into 3 plus for H2 it would be 18 into 18, that is equal to 666 grams. That is in 1 mole of alum 666 grams of alum will come. Now let's see for this calcium bicarbonate. So that is 1 mole of calcium bicarbonate would be 40 for calcium plus 1 plus 12 plus 48 into 2, that is equal to 61 into 2, that is 122 plus 40, that is 162 grams. That is in 1 mole of calcium bicarbonate there will be 162 grams. So here we can see in this equation 1 mole of alum reacts with 3 mole of calcium bicarbonate. So we have to multiply it with 3. So here we can say that 666 grams of alum reacts with 162 into 3 grams of alkalinity as CaHCO3 whole twice. So this alkalinity, for now it is in terms of calcium bicarbonate. So first of all, let's convert it into calcium carbonate equivalent. So for that we have to find out the gram equivalent. So that would be equal to weight in grams, that is 162 into 3 divided by its equivalent weight. So equivalent weight for this would be its atomic or the molecular weight divided by valency. So valency Ca2 plus, it will ionize like this, so valency is 2. So we can put 162 by 2 multiplied by equivalent weight of CaCO3, so that is 50, because this is 40 plus this is 48 plus 12, that is 60. So 100 divided by 2, that is 50. So all this process, if you did not understand, please check the video of alkalinity. There I have talked about all this. So here we can say that this is equivalent to 300 grams as CaCO3. So this 162 into 3, that would be, I think, 486 grams. So 486 grams of alkalinity as calcium bicarbonate is equivalent to 300 grams of alkalinity as calcium carbonate. This is just the conversion. So here we can now directly say that 66 grams of alum is reacting with 300 grams of alkalinity as CaCO3, because the answer we have to obtain in terms of CaCO3. Now let's find out. So for 1 gram of alum we would require 300 by 666 grams of alkalinity. Now we can find out for the given quantity, that is for 20 milligrams per liter, how much alum would be required. So what is the total quantity of water? It is 10 mld. So this total quantity of alum we can calculate of alum would be 20 milligrams per liter into 10 mld, that is 10 into 10 to the power 6 liters per day. And if you convert this, we can write this as 20 into 10 to the power minus 6 kilograms per day, sorry, kilograms per liter. So this liter will cancel out, this will cancel out. So total quantity of alum required is 200 kilograms per day. Now we can simply multiply this here and we can find out the requirement of alkalinity. So 200 into 300 by 666, that will be alkalinity required as CaCO3. So if you solve this, it is equal to 90 kg per day, and because in question it is in the terms of 10 to the power 6 milligrams per day, so we can write it as 90 into 10 to the power 6 milligrams per day. So you can see the options. C is the answer. So this way we can simply find out the total alkalinity requirement. Now one more question is there. We have to find out the quantity of quicklime required. So what is this requirement? So here some alkalinity is there already in water. So we have to find out how much alkalinity is there first of all. So 10 million liter per day, that is 10 into 10 to the power 6 liters per day, into the concentration of alkalinity is 6 milligrams per liter, that is 6 into 10 to the power minus 6 kilogram per liter. So that would be equal to 60 kg per day. So this is your alkalinity already present in water. And how much do we require? We require 90 into 10 to the power, that is simply 90 kilograms per day. So 90 minus 60, that is 30 kg per day of alkalinity as CaCO3 is required. Okay, now we have to find out how much quicklime has to be added, that is CaO has to be added to obtain this 30 kilogram per day of alkalinity as CaCO3. So instead of CaCO3, now we can simply convert this value in terms of CaO. So same logic is there what we did earlier, that is of gram equivalent. So find out the gram equivalent, multiply with the equivalent weight of CaO, that will give you the quantity of CaO. So gram equivalent would be weight taken in grams, so that is 30 kg per day divided by equivalent weight. So equivalent weight of CaCO3, that is 50 grams, and multiplied by equivalent weight of CaO. So equivalent weight would be the molecular weight, that would be 40 plus 16, that is 56, and divided by valency would be 2, so that is 28 grams as CaO. So this is your conversion. Now this is in grams, this is in grams, this also we can write. So this will cancel out, we have to find out in milligrams, I think. So if you solve this, it would be 16.8 into 10 to the power 3 grams per day. Now we have to find out this quantity per year. So per year we have to multiply this value with 1000. So 16.8, so for this gram you can convert it into milligrams as into 10 to the power 3 more will be added, so it is 10 to the power 6 into 365 milligrams per year. So if you solve this, it is equal to 6132 into 10 to the power 6 milligram per year. So D is your answer for this one. So otherwise also you can solve these kind of questions. For that you have to remember these chemical equations. So I don't know the chemical equations, so I prefer converting the things into gram equivalent, and that way you can find out for anything, because in alkalinity I also talked about that 1 gram equivalent of one compound will react with, or will be equivalent to 1 gram equivalent of other compound. So that simple logic is being applied here also. So this way you can solve these kind of problems. I hope you understood this. If you have any doubts, please ask. Thank you.